For the longest time as a gamer, I remember there were many dirty words, but none were dirtier than movie tie-in game. Now sure, there were a few diamonds in the rough when it came to movie tie-ins, but most were just awful. Until LEGO and TT Games threw their hats into the ring. With the parody style they brought to a tie-in, it not only felt like they were doing right by the source material, but also making the jokes that a fan and a casual observer would love. Hey guys, Drak here, and today we'll be taking a look at the most recent title in the LEGO series, with Marvel's Avengers, to see if it carries the series well, or if it's the black sheep of the bunch. Now some of you might be asking, wait, wasn't this game done a year or two ago? And technically, you're correct. Marvel Superheroes, however, did a parody of the Marvel Universe as a whole, whereas Avengers simply parodies the Marvel Cinematic Universe as it stands so far. The game roughly covers the plot of the two Avengers films as its main story, while the films leading up to both are more told as side stories to the actual plot. This is the game's real double-edged sword in my opinion. On one hand, it is cool that the stories of the Phase 1 and 2 films are in the game at all, but it is disappointing that they limited them to roughly side quests when they led up to both Avengers films. What's even more disappointing is that not all the films are there, with the first two Iron Man films, The Incredible Hulk, Thor, and Guardians of the Galaxy left out completely, which would have been great additions to the main game. While the story it tells stands on its own, it just makes fans disappointed and wanting more for their money. Graphically, there isn't a whole lot of difference between this game and others in the series. That being said, it still does have a lot of really good backgrounds and tools for the LEGO building trade. For example, the addition of unique open areas before each mission is a good idea, with players visiting Hawkeye's farm and seeing the setup for the upcoming film Civil War, to even going into the Easter eggs at the end of a Marvel film like Baron Strucker's castle and having a unique way to reveal the Maximoff twins like in Captain America: The Winter Soldier. Aside from those unique traits, this is your typical LEGO game and therefore still looks good, and holds up well to the rest of the series. Like with the graphics, this again feels and plays very much like the previous LEGO games in the series. For those not familiar, here's a basic explanation. It's a basic platformer where you go through the level to completion while dealing with obstacles thrown in your path. These can be anything from debris you have to destroy or rebuild to get out of the path, clearing the opposition before you can advance, and in most levels dealing with an end-level boss before the level is completed. Along the way there will be a ton of collectibles that go towards the replayability of the game, and you're given the choice whether to collect them or proceed with the story. Sometimes you may even need to return anyway because you don't have the necessary tool or character to get that collectible. Now that being said, this game does it well aside from a few complaints I have here and there. I did have a few glitches that made me restart a level, but not to the point of frustration. The other complaint I would have also is that a few powers were not properly explained in tutorial. For example, in the level where I got Scarlet Witch, I reached a segment where I had to control a civilian in order to get the parts I needed to advance. However, the game never explained this, and I thought I had broken the level, so I restarted, only to get there again and still be confused. Only after looking up a guide on YouTube, I then found out about the ability, and was frustrated. For no other reason than there was no prompt for it, so how was I supposed to know? But gripes aside, this game still plays as it should, and it's still enjoyable because of it. So this one is tricky, but let me explain before I get into why. This game being a parody and a tie-in to a bunch of films tends to use recycled audio from said films. So to sum up, the music and some of the voice work was from the movies they're portraying, but unlike most cases where I find that lazy, this one works. Again, this is a parody, so it's not like they're recycling all the film's audio, just pieces of it. Which does work as it helps with the humor. As you find out in the game, some of the lines are read and a completely different and humorous situation is put in visually. Now this argument aside, there is unique audio in this game. In a lot of the open areas, they actually brought in talent like Stephen Bloom and Nolan North to voice characters. Now whether they be just S.H.I.E.L.D. Agent No. 1 or even the Red Skull, which technically Steve Bloom does play him in the current Avengers animated series. So it's not completely just recycled audio, and all of it comes together brilliantly to bring forth an epic yet completely hilarious storyline. So I'm not sure if I even need to explain this, as LEGO fans know that replayability is there in this game. As I said before, in a LEGO game there are collectibles, and sometimes you will have to replay a mission with a newer character to get said collectibles. This is where free play comes in, as it allows you to replay the missions but skip the cutscenes if you want to, and just get the collectibles you couldn't before. Also in every mission there is a Stan Lee in peril that you need to save, which will also net collectibles for you, as well as provide some hammy dialogue from the man himself. There are also a few side missions you can take on in the open world areas which will net new characters, vehicles, and other collectibles to help you reach that ever-satisfying 100% completion. And finally, with the upcoming DLC packs featuring the stories of Ant-Man and Captain America Civil War, and introducing new content for that as well as the main content, there's plenty to do for the casual fans and completionists alike. So with the bad and the good in play, does this game come together to provide a wonderful experience for the player? For the most part, I would say it does its job while still being unique. While built more towards Marvel movie and LEGO fans, this is also a good recommendation for a casual gamer who's just looking for a good laugh at Marvel's expense. The LEGO formula still stands true and provides a wonderful time for veteran and new players alike. So as you can see, this game shines amongst the rest of the LEGO series and earns an 8.5 out of 10 from me. And that's going to do it for this review of LEGO Marvel's Avengers. If you like what you saw, feel free to leave a like and a comment, as well as consider subscribing to my channel, where there's plenty more content to explore. You can check out my most recent live streams of Diablo or even Undertale, or you can even take a listen to my podcast, Geek News, Reviews, and Opinions, where me and fellow YouTubers talk about the week's events in geek. But until then, I'm Drak, and I'll see you next time.